Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's LinkedIn Live session. I'm Rita Choi, founder of Asia HRM. I'm very honored to be your moderator for today. Today's conversation tackles a truth many organizations avoid. Culture is not what you say, it's what your architecture enables people to actually do. Values fail when governance, strategy, and execution, we simply call it GSE, are weak. And this is especially visible in philanthropy, where good intentions often collide with reality. We are here to explore why this happens and what leaders can do differently. We are joined by two wonderful and exceptional leaders. They are Francis Horn, founder and managing partner of Coven Impact, joining us from the UK. Davy Leung, corporate finance specialist, joining us from Hong Kong. Both have deep experience diagnosing organizational failures and helping leaders build structures that actually deliver impact. Before we start the panel discussion, I would love to say hello to everyone who are joining us today. Same as what you do last time, just let us know where you are from and feel free to put any questions or comments in the comment box. Our wonderful speakers will get all of them answered. Are you all ready for it? Okay, let's start the panel discussion. And I would love to have our panelists for today to introduce themselves. So who would like to do first? Davy or Francis?
Davy, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that first.
Okay, Davy, please.
Yeah. So good morning, everyone, or good afternoon or good evening, depends on where you are. I am Davy Leung, and my training has spanned three continents and MBA across Hong Kong, Shanghai, and also United States. So today I am based in Australia. So I've got 2 hours ahead of you guys from Hong Kong. So where I operate cross-border and extending business from Hong Kong into Japan nowadays. So professionally, I am a fellow CPA and a fellow member of the ICA, International Compliance Association, and a former assurance professional at Big Four companies, a former CFO in the listed companies in Hong Kong, and also a venture capital operator. So my practice sits at the intersection of governance, M&A, and AI-driven finance, and turning regulatory disciplines into execution leverage. So for today's Asia HRM, what I bring is a simple, hard-won conviction. Culture is not a poster on the wall. It is a development issue. And for the coming hour, this is exactly the conversation we will have. That's myself.
Thank you, Davy. Oh, you are from Australia today. I thought you are from Hong Kong. Sorry about that. Anyway, Francis, your turn. I'm sure you are from the UK, right?
I'm from the UK. So the sun is coming out now. It's 5 o'clock here in the morning. So thanks, Rita, for the invite, and Davy, it's good to be sharing the stage with you. So I'm Francis Horn. I'm founder and managing partner of Coven Impact. So I mainly do philanthropy and family advisory. I have a background in HR and also in banking. So I started my career in the Hong Kong government labor department. And then I joined the Hong Kong IHRM, the Institute of Human Resource Management, and I managed the accreditation project for the Hong Kong IHRM in the 2000s. After that, I joined HSBC as a trust person and also as a philanthropy advisor. And then I joined Hong Kong Jockey Club and University of Chicago. Also mainly do philanthropy advisory and governance advisory. So fast forward to now, I have my own firm, as I've said, that does philanthropy and family advisory. And the reason why I am sharing with all of you today is that when we talk about value, when we talk about culture in a company, either in a corporate setting or in a family setting, we very frequently think about what the company's visions are, what the company's objectives are, and what the purposes of a company or of a family has. And very often, philanthropy is a rather pure representation of a company's value, right? For example, when you think about corporate philanthropy, when you think about motivating your colleagues to do voluntary work, or that the company supports some NGOs in doing their very good community work, you very often think about the company's value and whether the company's values aligned with either the voluntary work or the corporate sponsorship that you are providing. But as we go on in today's session, I will try to argue that I will try to present my view that even though for something as pure value, as pure culture, as philanthropy, we still have to pay a lot of attention and effort in thinking about governance, strategy, and execution. So I'm looking forward to sharing all of those with you in the next hour.
Thank you, Francis. So even though we are doing any voluntary work, right, we have to bear in mind the framework of GSE, right? Thank you so much for the reminder. So I would love to say hello to those who just said hello to us. We have Andrew Chen from Hong Kong, I believe so. Jasmine from Myanmar. We have somebody from LinkedIn. Okay, he or she did not disclose her location, and we have Savannah Ra from from Cambodia. Welcome all of you. So let's start with our first panel discussion. Okay, start with the first question. And for those who have any questions or comments, just feel free to put in the comment box. Okay, so here comes the first question. So Francis and Davey, people often say the problem is never the people, it's always the architecture. But isn't it sometimes genuinely a leadership character problem? They are bad leaders making bad choices. How do you distinguish between a character issue and an architectural failure? Who would like to answer this first? Maybe Davey?
Yeah, maybe I can take this question. So thanks for the question. So I will use two tests, and I want to give you a precise answer rather than a comfortable one. So the first is the pattern test. So if an individual behaves in a way that is really out of line with everyone around them. So for example, one manager lies, and one executive who quickly takes credits for others' work, right? So that's likely a character issue, and the right response to a people's decision is not a structural redesign. So, but if the same behavior keeps appearing across different people, different levels of the company, or different tenures, or all sitting on the same structural position, this is not a character problem. So this is an architectural signal, right? So, for example, I will be using Boeing's MCAS concealment case in later to talk about how we see this is an architectural failure or whether it is a cultural issue. And also I will be sharing how a character within a company sets the cultural behavior for the entire groups of company, whether it is from Hong Kong or from across Asia. So there'll be some case study to signpost, okay, where is the actual problem, or where is the character, who is the character, or whether it's an architectural failure.
I just wanted to add that there's sometimes a tendency to rely on an architecture or to rely on a good architecture to move forward whatever initiative you are having. But I would like to emphasize that anyone in the organization has to pay attention to character and to rely on your own judgment, and also to rely on other colleagues' judgment. You talk to people, you ask for their opinion to build a view as to the character or the behavior of anyone key to any issues or any organization that you are attending to. So yeah, I just like to add that it's never a good idea to ignore character issues, and the key of discovering any potential character issue is to use your own judgment and use your own observation to find out whether there are anything that is likely to go wrong.
Thank you, thank you. So yeah, there's a saying that actually, if you want to explain what a company culture is, basically is the character of the company. So this is what I heard, and this is what I interpret as the company culture. Maybe Davey and Francis can share more on this, and also Davey is going to share with us some case studies, right? I'd love to listen to stories.
Very interesting case studies.
Yeah. Davey, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so we move on with the discussion. Yep. Okay. So let me start with my sharing on the view of today's topic. So I want to open with a headline from this week. Not sure whether you guys read Financial Times. There is a company called Evergrande. In Cantonese, it's called Hyundai, right? So Evergrande's liquidators reportedly sent a letter to PwC Hong Kong partners and warning them not to use divorce or family assets transfer to shield personal wealth from potential of a US 8.5 billion of negligence claim relating to PwC's audits of their accounts between 2017 to 2020. So the problem is nothing has been proven and there is no trial date, and PwC declined to comment on anything. So that was a headline on Financial Times. So, but notice that what letter reveals that is so directly related to today's topic. So PwC stated value are built entirely on integrity and also independence, right? And yet, when the stacks got personal enough, someone felt it is necessary to write the specific warning down. So where's the gap? So the gap is between what an organization sets its values are and what people actually do under real personal pressure. Is exactly what we are going to talk about that today. So imagine in a professional firm, you've got your stakeholding inside a partnership. So when someone went wrong, the entire partnership is liable for some kind of like claims or liabilities, like jointly, right? So this is what we are talking about. So integrity, innovation, and excellence, and people first. So you'll be hearing a lot of these like four characters, like putting on the wallpaper, office walls, or maybe like slogan, any reports, or any like onboard decks when you go for interview. So most of us, we are HR professionals, and you used to ask a candidate, okay, do you understand our company's values, or do you understand like what our company is going to achieve in the coming 5 years? So these are what we are going to discuss about, like how the target and how the wordings and how actually the company behaves. And here is what I've observed as someone who has spent his career building business across these very different markets. So most organizational values are kind of performing art. It's quite not fair to say that, but a lot of organizational values, they are performing art. So what they say and what they do is two completely different perspectives. So they are produced for investors, like from the view of today's topic. So the organization values are produced for investors, for regulators, and for new hires. Right, so they are communicated through the beautifully designed campaigns, and on Monday morning, the actual governance architecture of the company quietly overrides every single word. So I will be using some case study to explain about like how I see and why I see this. All right. So today I want to offer you a completely different lens. Take away your HR hats away and to just look at the case study as an outsider. No one from a textbook, but like no one from a textbook, but one built from watching. Like for myself, I'm watching the organization succeed and fail across multiple cultures and also different market cycles. Instead of treating the culture as engagement language or as value brand exercise, I treat culture as something far more concrete. They are observable operating behavior. So it's now twisting a little bit. Observable operating behavior. So here's one idea I want you to carry through the entire section, because this is foundation of everything Francis and myself am going to share with you this morning or afternoon. Culture is not what an organization says. Okay, it is how people decide, how they behave and execute in every single day, especially when nobody is watching, and when the pressure is high, and when doing the right thing may carry a personal cost. Okay, so try to digest. When something may carry a personal cost, if I voice out or if I don't agree with something. So that distinction is not semantic. It is a difference between the organizations that build something really durable and organization that look strong right up until the moment real pressure arises, and then collapse in a way that in hindsight were entirely predictable. Okay, so in this section, Francis and I will show you that the exact same logic. The gap between the stated values and also the structural reality. So determines whether the philanthropic capital and impact investment creates genuine and lasting changes, or simply generates some good intention with no measurable outcome. Okay, so maybe Francis, do you want to share what is philanthropic challenge and the hearts and also the minds?
Yeah. So, thank you, David. Yeah, so I agree very much that the observable behavior is actually a very concrete and a real representation of a company culture. So as I've said earlier in the session, that even though philanthropy is very value driven, it's a very cultural thing for a company, it is also important to actually execute philanthropy in a sense that you walk the talk, right? That you really live the value and the culture that is being promoted. So one case study I have is that I work very closely with a client who that it's a family business, and they use the family office and also their company staff to do philanthropy for the benefit of course society and also for the company and for the office. So they are saying that, oh, Francis, what should I do to actually tell colleagues and tell the community that we care for them? So if we talk about value, then caring, being compassionate, right? Those are two very common values and culture that you would see quite commonly, as Davey said, in your materials to investors or when you talk to new hires. But in that particular case, we designed a scholarship scheme, not just for the company to donate to universities, but the scholarship is for the company's employees themselves. And my client is an industrialist, so they have factories. They hire quite a lot of people who don't have good education background and don't have a lot of financial resources. So that particular scholarship scheme benefit their factory workers, their factory colleagues, and the factory colleagues' children. So that scholarship scheme actually encourage the family of the employees to work hard, to study hard, so that they can benefit from the scholarship scheme to go to good universities. So I think that is a rather simple but also a rather powerful example of how a company is actually doing something, is actually designing something. And David and I will talk more about GSE, governance, strategy, and execution. So that is a good example of actually strategizing as to how you think about value and execute in a way that that the value is actually being laid out, is being lived. So in that case, the caring for society, caring for your employee, the compassionate part is being actualized through the scholarship scheme. So I think that is one case that I want to share.
But Francis, in this case, can we tell whether it's the character of the boss that has made the value really happen, or they really walk the talk, or is the architectural issue? Is there something to do with the architecture of the company?
Yeah. So I don't know whether any of us here have heard a term called operationalize. So throughout my career, I have worked with quite a number of really fantastic either companies or foundations, and a lot of them like to talk about how you can help us operationalize something. So to Rita's question, it's about operationalize the boss's character, if you like. So the boss, who's from a very passionate, very caring family, has the character of being caring, of being compassionate, of being very understanding of people around them, even though those are people who doesn't come from the same background or have the same level of financial resources as the boss does. So that is the character. So, but how do they turn that character into an architecture? How do they operationalize the value? Then it's the architecture, right? Then it's about setting aside money to do scholarship. That's about designing a good scholarship scheme that actually motivates colleagues to work hard, to stay loyal to the company. That's actually designing a scheme that actually talks to the colleagues, family members, their children, to encourage them, to mobilize them, to work hard, to be part of the company's bigger family, and also to help them to successfully apply to the scholarship and to enter into good universities. And those are architecture. So I would say that if we are successful in operationalize a character, a value, then it's actually a full spectrum of how a character leads to successful and effective architecture.
Very nice. Operationalize the values of the organization. Okay. David, would you like to anything to add on before we move on to another question?
Yeah, I love the word operationalize. Lovely.
Yeah. So the first time I heard this word, so I have to going around my mind a few times. It is a long word, and it isn't instinctive, but the more you think about that, the more sense it makes. Right, operationalize something is actually a very good way to actualize your value.
Yeah, to put the values into practice, right?
Yeah.
Good. So we have two questions from the viewers today. The first one is from our friend in Cambodia, Mr. Sovanara. Okay, so here is his question. What are the most common reasons culture transformation initiatives fail? And what early indicators should leaders watch for? So the question is already on the screen. You can see it on the screen.
Okay.
So here are two questions here.
Right. So maybe I can take this one.
Mm.
Okay, so so what are the most common reasons? So I think there might be three reasons consistently. So the first one might be the leaders launch new language without touching the structure. So for example, if I hire a new CEO, CFO, and then they come into the company, they've got their own working behavior, they've got their own experience, but then they've got no idea how the company has been working, like how they contribute to the success from the past. So values get rebrand, but incentives and also the decision right stay exactly the same. So they move without the structure. So I've seen a lot of company, they've got a new hires and new managers and new boss, and they come into the company, they use their old practice or how they apply their old successful case or experience into a new company, which doesn't apply because of the existing structure or architectural behavior of the existing company. Right, so this is the first one. And the second one may be the measure sentiment instead of behavior. So the engagement score feels reassuring, but tells you almost nothing about what people actually do under pressure. So they ask people to, okay, can you do this and do that? And your incentives should be based on the new KPI, for example. So they can't really align with how my new move align with my my results or my reimbursement. So that may be one of the another problem. So third might be the transformation may collapse at its first real test. So a genuine crisis forces a choice between the new value and also a short-term result. There are a lot of time people put down a new value and also a short-term result, whether it is the company goal or whether it is the goal of the new management who wants a particular result for short-term. So about money. So the leadership picks the result and undoing months of the progress in a one visible moment. So this is how I see like how what would be the main common reason of the cultural transformation. This is what I see.
Thank you, Davey. Anything to add on from Francis? Or Francis would like to provide the second question. What early indicator should leader watch for?
So yeah, I have nothing to add to Davey's excellent answer. So yeah, let me take the second question. So the question was, what leadership behaviors are essential for creating a culture of accountability, trust, and high performance? So I would say that the first and foremost behavior is for the leader to actually walk the talk. I think the leader themselves has to be accountable. They have to be open. They have to tell people what they represent, what their objectives are, what their roles are, and constantly be transparent and tell people what they are doing. So I think the same is true for trust. So they have to trust people first. They have to have very clear assignment of duties, assignment of responsibilities to their colleagues, tell them what they're expecting, tell them what their KPIs are, and trust them that they will do their job properly. Of course, that doesn't mean that they don't regularly check in with them. It doesn't mean that they don't do coaching and training as the manager, but trust is essential, and also high performance. I think a lot of the leadership will say that, "Oh, look, I accept nothing but excellence. I accept nothing but high performance," and a lot of times, then people impose some almost impossible targets and KPIs and ask people to put in a ridiculous amount of time in the work. But high performance also means that you align everyone's goal with the company's goal. And as the leader, you clarify people's goal, you help them prioritize, you enlighten them with how their work is related to the overall company success. And that is a way of encouraging and coaching and bringing about high performance. So, in short, I think the essential behaviors are that the leaders themselves being accountable and being trusting in order to create a culture of accountability and trust. And with that, they have to be transparent, they have to be honest. And for high performance, the leaders have to constantly communicate about the value, the goal, the mission of the company, and to enlighten people as to how their work is related to the overall success of the company. So, David, do you have anything to add with your many experience of working with many companies across the globe?
Yeah, I think that's all good. And it's quite well fitted into what we have been talking about, the structural architecture of the company. So let me try to utilize what we can see using GSE. So what if a corporate culture is observable behavior? The critical question becomes what actually drives that behavior. So if you get a pen and paper, try to copy down like 3 words. So what drives observable behavior is the organization's structural architecture, and the way the power, the incentives, and also the information flow and decision makings are actually designed and actually operate day to day. So we are talking about like GSE, governance, strategy, and execution. So for myself, I simply put out a formula because I love numbers. I'm an accountant. So observable culture equals to governance clarity times strategic alignment times execution capability. So this is a formula, is a multiplicative. It's not additive. You can't add them all together. It's not 1 + 1 + 1 equals to 3. It's 1 × 1 × 1 equals to 1. So imagine if any one component approach to 0. So anything times 0, that means the equation equals to 0. So the entire cultural architecture fails, right? So no matter how strong the other tools are, you cannot compensate for a governance failure with a brilliant strategy, or you cannot compensate for a capability gap in execution with beautiful values communication. So everything has to be larger than 1 in order to get the final result is larger than 1 rather than 0. So let me break each element down. So governance is your cultural skeleton, right? So it answers the question employees are always silently asking. So who really has the power here? So for example, if you work for a company and you will be asking, who should I report to and who really has the power? It is not about the organization chart. Of course, you've got a manager, senior manager, and the C people, and then up to the boss. But in real life, what actually gets rewarded and what actually gets punished is how people see who really has the power. Maybe your manager or maybe your subordinates, for example. But for myself, like the most importantly is when someone delivers bad news to leadership, what happens to them? For example, if I deliver some bad news to the leadership, what happens to those people or what happens to myself? I've got to think. If I report something to the manager about like my boss has did something wrong, he lost like a particular amount of money, I've got to think about my own personal consequence. So that is why the governance is often invisible until it breaks. So people are not likely or not willing to share bad information, at least in part of Asia. So when it breaks, everything built on top of it will collapse with it. Okay, and you notice that the PwC story I opened, which is precisely a governance story. So the question isn't whether individuals, partners have the good personal values. I'm sure many of them do. I also came from this company. The question is that what the governance architecture of a partnership structure does to individual behavior when personal financial exposure becomes real and severe. Okay, so this that's governance produce observable behavior right now. So exactly the framework is going to discuss. So the governance. So we are going to the strategy. So the strategy is your cultural compass in the company. So it answers where are the actual where are we actually deploying our resources strategy, not where we are saying we are deploying them, but where the budget, the headcount, and the leadership attention really go. What are we truly willing to sacrifice to hit our stated goals? And when strategy is dishonest about the capability, when commitments are made that the organization structurally cannot deliver, employees fill the gap with cynicism. Okay, and cynical employees don't build culture; they will survive it. So I will be like talking about like how these employees they can survive in a company. Think about in your own company, in your previous company, there are always a lot of these kind of employees make friends with you. They can survive in any situation. And GS and we come to E. So execution is where the culture becomes visible. How you execute or whether you execute with your plans. So does this manager tell the truth in all the meetings? All right? Does this employee speak up when they see a problem? Does our promotion decisions reward honesty or in alignment? So execution is the daily accumulation of thousands of individuals' decisions. So each one shaped by the governance signals the strategic incentives that the person has absorbed over time. So now, why does this matters like really here in Hong Kong and in across Asia? So my experience across Hong Kong, mainland China, Japan reveals something that Western management literature constantly underestimate. So I'm talking about like the Asian company versus the Western. Okay, so in predominant like top-down governance structure in Asia, most Asian corporate architecture is explicitly top-down by design. So everyone at the bottom of the triangle reports up all the way. So employees develop extraordinary accuracy in reading the gap between what leadership says and what leadership actually rewards. Okay, imagine in your own company, we are in Asia. So they watch who gets promoted. Okay, start to think about your previous company. They watch who gets promoted. They watch what's happened to people who challenge the decisions, especially in a lot of Japanese culture. They watch how leadership behaves when the pressure is real, and when they calibrate their own behavior according to the company, what they call the behavior. So this is not weakness. I won't say that as a weakness. This is what I call intelligence. So employees are so rational actors, responding to the structural incentives that they have given. And that brings me to a single most important sentence that I think the problem is never the people. The problem is always the architecture. So if you know why I call this is I call this is a development issue, and this is why. So fixing the culture requires structural development and government redesign and strategic honesty, execution, capability building, and not other communication campaigns. So so this is what I want to bring up to the table, and maybe Francis. So what GSC means for impact in your philanthropy experience or your industry?
Right. Yeah. Thanks, David. Though I think what you shared are very helpful and very interesting. So for GSE in philanthropy, I also recall another client who I've served, who in the philanthropy world, people almost always come with value, with culture, with the thing that they want to do. So a client of mine says that, oh, we want to help elderly people in Hong Kong. So then I asked them, oh, there are many elderly people in need in Hong Kong. There are people who are bored. There are people who are ill, and there are people who are lonely. So who do we want to help? And through this, again, the operationalized word comes in. How are we operationalize those things? And then, although we didn't use GSE, we didn't use the GSE framework or concept back then. It was actually GSE. So first, we think about the governance. So when people are thinking about making donations, we start to build a team, we start to build an architecture. In philanthropy terms, we are then saying that we need to build a donation committee, which is a group of people who are responsible for deciding where and who and how much to donate. And that comprises, in that case, of some family members and some professional trustee like myself. We also then design a terms of reference for that donation committee to really define their responsibilities, their roles, what they have to do, and how frequently do we rotate people in the donation committee. And then we also design, because I'm a trust person, we also design a trust structure that determines how the money is coming in, how money is going to be invested, those kind of things. So that is the first step of GSE, that is governance. And then we think about strategy. Strategy is to decide which routes are we taking in order to make the most impact. So we then decide whether they want to help people who are ill, or help people who are bored, or help people who are lonely, as I've said. So in the end, we decided that we want to help people who are sick. So that is one strategy. The other strategy is whether or not they want to do hardware, right? They want to buy machines. They want to buy equipment for hospitals, or do they want to do software, right? For example, that they do organized training for carers of elderly people who are sick, for example. So then those are strategy. Those are, if you like, a representation of the value. So you may have the value of that you want to care for old people, that you want to care for people who are ill, but then you still need a strategy. You still need to articulate that value into something that is doable. And then execution in that case means that I, being a member of the trustee, a professional trustee, and a philanthropy advisor, I go out with the family members to visit nonprofits, to discuss with them, to come up with project ideas, to do due diligence, to look at their annual reports, to look at their figures, to look at their experience, to decide whether those are organizations that we can really trust, and also to decide whether, for example, if my client is going to donate 2 million Hong Kong dollars, whether that is a sum that is too big for them or it's too small for them. And then from there, we go on to sign an agreement with them. We do regular monitoring, we do regular visit, we ask them regularly whether they are doing okay or whether they need more support from us. So then from putting together a donation committee, designing terms of reference, to then deciding and articulating the strategy, to going out and talk to nonprofits, decide on the projects, sign agreement and stuff. So those are governance, strategy, and execution that actually operationalize. Again, I'm using that word, to operationalize the culture and the value. But at the same time, I also want to emphasize that I've also seen corporate or private foundations that are after some time being entirely process driven. So they would just do things day in, day out, year in, year out, without apparently thinking about what they really wanted to do. So then I would say that it's not that culture and value is not important. They are important, but I think the key to success is how you put those value and culture into the architecture, as Davey has said, so that you make sure that the value and culture is constantly being thought of, is constantly being visited and revisited, and that those things are being done in practice.
Okay, thank you, Davey and Francis, for the detailed explanation of how this GSE framework work in philanthropy. And for Davey, you just gave us a very good, very interesting interpretation on G. Governance, the cultural skeleton. Strategy stands for cultural compass, and execution stands for visibility of culture, right? So I really love this kind of further explanation, also interpretation of GSE. I'm sure that our viewers will have a better understanding of GSE and even put them into practice in their own organization. Thank you so much. So I hope we have answered your question, Mr. Sovanara, especially about the most common reasons, right? I think the most common reasons are the practice, as Davey mentioned, right? New managers tend to use their own practice instead of adapting to the current values or the culture of the organization, and also the sentiment of the employees, how to measure their sentiments. Therefore, some companies will have some values related to the emotion. So some companies will have emotional values such as fun at their work. They even measure each of the employee on their daily sentiment, whether they're having fun at work, how's their mood of the day. I think this is quite interesting, right? It also matches with what Davey mentioned about measure the sentiment of the employee rather than their behavior. And lastly is to test out the new values, right? The new values that some company will try to put with the new values in order for short-term gain. But anyway, so thank you so much for the very detailed answer from our speakers today. So we have another question from our viewers today. The another question is, what leadership behavior are essential for creating a culture of accountability, trust, and high performance? Leadership behavior are essential for creating a culture of accountability, trust, and high performance. Who would like to answer this question? I think this will be our last question for the panel discussion before we come up with the closing remarks. Okay, anybody would like to, Davey or Francis?
I can do that. So,
yeah, Davey, yeah.
So I think like also three behaviors. So not requiring a budget. So protect the messenger. So what happens to the person who brings you bad news is the loudest signal in the organization. So protect them, and information keeps floating, and punish them once everyone learns to filter. So model your own learning curve. So maybe I can quickly share one case study. So Nutella is about like Microsoft. So they publicly sharing his own AI mistakes and did more for Microsoft culture than any workshops. And a leader who only ever displays mastery teach everyone else to hide uncertainty instead of surfacing it. So make the rewards match the words rather than the other way around. And employees can read your promotion decisions far more closely than your value statement. And one visible promotion that clearly rewards honesty over alignment does more for accountability than a year of leadership training. That's my view.
Okay, so David, you mentioned about protection, right?
Yeah.
So as a good leader, they will protect their employees, especially when they try to have some information that they're going to disclose to the management, right? So that information will keep on floating. Okay. So for Francis, any other two behavior you would like to add on? Because David mentioned three, right? So maybe Francis will have some contribution about the behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one thing is transparency. So yeah. So I think the leader has to be transparent as to how they themselves are being accountable and how they themselves are being trusting. So I think transparency is one thing. The second thing is I think strategic clarity is another. I think a lot of time it's not that colleagues are unwilling to put in their best to contribute to the company. It's that they do not understand what they're doing are relevant to the overall success of the company. So I think a key role of a leader is to provide that kind of strategic clarity to bring together everyone's effort and motivate them and mobilize them to do their best for their own benefit and also for the company's benefit.
I love this strategic clarity, right? Not just own clarity. How does it link to the business result? Clarity. And this is company-lies it. David, anything to add on before we move on?
Yeah, I want. So I'm not sure about like the time, but if I'm allowed, I want to share the real case example that every of us can search online. So these are not secret material. These are like all published online. But I want to use these three examples to showcase how if we are talking about behavioral or like a structural problem. So I've got like three examples. So the first one is about the New World development and the 11 skies. So those who lives in Hong Kong who will understand what is a New World development, and also there's a new building next to the airport. It's called 11 skies. Okay, so when the vision becomes a structural liability, so vision of the management. So New World development transformation under Adrian Cheng. So the previous CEO, Adrian was one of the Hong Kong's most ambitious strategic bets on his business. So involving from traditional property development into cultural destination creation. So the Sky 11 concept integrated museum quality art with luxury retail. So if you have been in Singapore, you know there's a super like big shopping center next to the airport called Jewel. So he's trying to do the same thing as like in Hong Kong. Next to the airport, you've got 11 skies. So the crown jewel was 11 skies, and that was a Hong Kong 20 billion worth of integrated lifestyle development at Hong Kong International Airport. Like walking distance, 10 minutes, I think like less than 10 minutes. So he was trying to target the 70 million annual passengers. So he was looking for design to be the Asia's largest experimental destination. Okay, so the vision was huge, and the ambition was quite real. So, but here is what the observable behavior inside the organization was quietly revealing. So meetings where nobody challenged the optimistic financial projections, and financial communications that emphasize narrative over operating reality, and also the promotions that reward alignment with the founder's vision over the accurate and also the honest reporting. So, and most critically, Adrian's is a personal brand. His personal brand has become so structurally inseparable, like you can't really separate from the company, from the corporate strategy, that the organization lost its ability to honestly evaluate whether the strategy was actually working. So these people, so if you talk about, mention about like new world, that means like is this guy. If this guy is not here, then that company basically the entire image collapse. So when interest rate increased sharply from 2022 onwards, the debt-heavy development pipeline became structurally unsustainable. So they borrow money from the bank, and if you borrow, the cost of borrowing is directly tied to the interest rate. So Moody's downgraded New World to sub-investment grade in 2024, and the company reported losses of approximately roughly 19.7 billion for the financial year end 2024 June. Right, so that was a huge number. So the subsequent restructuring of Sky 11 Skies with the Hong Kong Airport Authority and reportedly emerging as a key stakeholder in the project future. So that was not a sudden crisis. So it was entirely a predictable outcome of the governance architecture that has been structurally incapable of generating honest feedback for years, basically for years, because of Adrian. So Adrian resigned as a CEO in November 2024, exposed the most dangerous feature of a personality-dependent culture architecture. So this is what Francis mentioned about like, operationalize the company. So when the individuals whose vision and personal brands are basically is inseparable from the strategy departs. So there is no institutional foundation left standing, right? So you can see like how this example explain about a personal brand. Quickly, second case example. So the aircraft company Boeing 737 MAX. So that is a proof of how values without structures are meaningless. So Boeing has run a genuinely engineer-led company and culture. So before the 1997 merger with McDonnell Douglas, the Boeing's leadership was predominantly engineers. So they are all good, very good engineers, willing to spend decades of tens of thousands of dollars on new aircraft because engineering excellence, not this quarters number, but it was the value that actually drove the decisions. So after the M&A, McDonnell's executive took senior leadership positions. And this is how what we mentioned about the new leader, they want to impose their short-term goal. So the headquarters moved away from Seattle, where the engineers and all the factories were locating, to Chicago. So they move away from a manufacturing base to a financial base in Chicago. So the executive compensation was tied to stock performance. So you can see the problem. They tie their performance to stock performance rather than the engineering matrix. So as a aircraft company, safety first, right? So now what's the behavior of this product or of the results? So facing competition from Airbus, A320neo, and Boeing chose to modify a 50-year-old airframe rather than invest in a new aircraft, because faster, cheaper, and better for the near-term financial performance. So the results of the aerodynamic changes required a software fix, which is called the MCAS. So you can search online the MCAS, which is another software that you've got to retrain yourself. And that was concealed from pilots. So all the pilots, they've got no idea there is another new software, avoiding to trigger the costly retraining requirements. So if you retrain everyone, that costs another like big bucks, right? So all the engineers who raised concern were marginalized. You raise your voice and you talk to senior manager, you talk to senior management, you get ignored. You're put aside. You're sent to somewhere like some like rural-based airports, right? So quality inspectors who flagged the problem face personal consequences. So we are not talking about like the whistleblowers, just normal, this is not our company wants, the safety has a red flag, they got personal consequence. And also the governance architecture has made silence the rational personal choice. Okay, so what was the result? 346 people died in 2 crashes, And also in January 2024, a door plug blew out mid-flight on an Alaska Airlines. Proof that the underlying manufacturing problem, the cultural problem, still exists after years. Okay, so if time allows, I want to go through very quickly about the third case
One
study.
more minute for you.
Okay,
One
one
more
minute.
minute.
So, okay, Microsoft. So Microsoft under Steve Ballmer, the Microsoft ran a stack ranking. So they forced every team to label a fixed percentage of people as the bottom performers, regardless of actual output. So the observable result: employees compete with other colleagues rather than collaborating, and knowledge hoarding was rational. And innovation was suppressed because the visible failure carried personal risk with no structural protection. So how did they change the entire thing? So they changed by putting out two simple but structurally revolutionary review questions. How did you use others' contribution to advance your work, and how did your work help others succeed? So the cross-departmental collaboration reportedly increased roughly by 300%. And Azure grew into a business generating over 60 billion annually. And also Microsoft market capitalization rose from around 300 billion to over 3 trillion. So these are the three examples that I want to explain. The good thing about like a personal image, and also the bad thing about personal image, how the structure get company collapse, and also how things can be done to fix the GSC early enough to make sure the company is going in the right track. Thank
you, David. Thank you for letting us know the importance of following this GSC framework, right, in order to be sustainable. Okay, so any closing remarks before we end the session today? Maybe Francis, give you 30 seconds for the closing remarks.
So one word, so operationalize. Think about how you operationalize your culture, your value into something that you can really bring alive, bring to actual impact that you can contribute to company and community success.
Thank you. Operationalize. How about David? 30 seconds for you. Okay. So I think if the structure makes trying new things dangerous, the culture will always look conservative, regardless of how many times the word innovations appears in a town hall presentation. So I think one of the takeaway will be try to look at the company outside the box in the first day, rather than you jump in and to look around, to take a look like what's available on hand. I think it's better to look outside the box most of the time before you start anything, because either the structure cannot be on the same pace with you, or either the people cannot be the same pace with you, or maybe the people's view or people's target is not on the same page. So make sure to look at the whole thing entirely out of the box. Thank you. Looking entirely outside of the box. Thank you so much. So here comes the closing reflection. Before we wrap up, I want to highlight one core message from today. Culture is a development issue. Values only become real when governance, strategy, and execution make them unavoidable. And thank you very much, Francis and Davey, for your insights, for your insights and honesty and clarity. And thank you, every one of you who have joined us today. If you care about building organizations and also philanthropy related initiatives that deliver results, not just good intentions, stay connected with AHRM, Culture Engage Plus, and also ESG in a box economy. So have a meaningful afternoon, and see you all in our next session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you. Bye-bye.